Oh, go live. Okay. Okay, I'm still learning a little bit more to the this new OBS features, but I think we're live here. Let's kind of see if we can get just want to see. Okay, there's OBS. Probably let me swish. Even I think I can do a pop out chat for. Yeah, it's probably fine there. Let's see. No current viewers, apparently, but I'll just see. Let's go through kind of my little bit of my morning routine. I may have to go through and turn the cooler on low here. I don't think it'll interfere too much with the volume level. At least I have a headset. I've got a noise canceling, and the microphone hopefully should not pick up too much of that as well. So let me see on OBS what my and I've adjusted my microphone level a little bit from test yesterday. I don't think I have really any clipping. I think my voice is coming across pretty good for the level it's set up. But let me know if Major Tom. Hi, I'm going through and I had to get some new equipment. The ClearClick box in the back there is a replacement. On my old one, I the micro USB, and I stored it wrong. I stored it with cables connected and things like that. And the micro USB came loose, and it's a repair I'll have to do. I was inside the unit, and I'll just have to source a micro USB from some other board, maybe, or maybe is new, and solder it in place. And thank you for saying that the audio is good. I hope my lighting and my camera view is pretty good as well. I've just turned on the swamp cooler here to at least blow a little bit of cold air past me because the morning is starting to heat up. Um, and making some adjustments. Um, I've got some more cables coming in. Um, I had to make sure that that Vista screensaver is going. It looked like the modder was just was out on it, but it'd gone to screensaver, and that screensaver is just so mostly black. And but you look like you're the only viewer right now for everything. Well, I got okay. Maybe that's increasing concurrent viewers. YouTube is really hard to tell for all that. But I'm running OBS, a later version of OBS, on a much more powerful system as well. And will hope that that goes a lot better. In fact, I for that other laptop not having an SSD, despite being a pretty high-end, pretty good system, um, that with this system at least, I didn't have to wait on the hard drive activity to die down or anything like that for today. I just went through and powered up. Of course, I was a little bit late here and everything. Um, Now the other things that I've done back on the bench there, and I hope my camcorder out. I was just seeing kind of some shimmering from that in a way, but maybe I'm up and close on a high res display for this laptop, and maybe it's just not uh, the recording level is well the excuse me the uh, the mismatch in resolution or something else, just the bit level stuff. Now I do like that newer ClearClick because it has a later firmware, and they really wanted to confuse me because all the HDMI style inputs on the back are switched around, and I connected it up, and I had the HDMI out and the HDMI in plug, and then I just had those reversed, and so I wasn't getting video from the Loki, much less plugged into a system through the USB. And I finally figured it out. RTFM, look through the book and look at the indicators on the what connections they are. I thought it was a dead unit at first, and I was really sweating it. But it's got later firmware. It's got a little bit more adjustments to it. And the surprising thing is ClearClick is now gone, and they don't have an on-off on the remote anymore. As a way, they just recommend unplugging the unit from AC when it's not in use. And the ClearClick, you can set it up for almost like a DVR sort of system. Even plug in a USB thumb drive to go through and record on a schedule. It has, of course, as modern equipment, a clock and everything else, but you can set it off someplace with a local recording mechanism to do. You don't even need a computer connected to it. And but I was really surprised that they recommend powering it or unplugging it when it's not in use. They don't have a power switch on it anymore, which is fine by me as well. I'll just go through and I'll have the hidden wood grain power strip that's back there. I'll just have it um, just run a plugged in, or maybe even do a switch box like I have for the zip drive. And so the bench is coming around. I've taken away the little Think Center small form factor that I had there. You may have seen in older videos, and I did that. I actually have a DisplayPort cable coming down from this, and this is a real nice, not an IBM monitor. You maybe can recognize the lines in it to know what brand it actually is. But I thought I'd rebrand it a little bit there with my black labeler for saying that it's not an IBM. But this is ultimately, I think the native resolution on it is 1600 by 1200, and it has composite video even in that it will do. And I don't think it has an S video connection. It might. I'd have to look again. But and I actually need to get this pedestal mounted just right, even where this ClearClick is, get it moved over, get the swing arm of the monitor mounted. I've got some heavy duty angle iron that I can put inside this bench. This bench is actually pretty good construction. It's old copy machine card actually on wheels. And then my photo rig is also on wheels and things like that. It helps really here for having things set up. But I may have an S video on this. Let's see. And I tried doing, there's the, yeah, I'd have to see. Still not a real good. And of course, I have to make sure I have all these cables adjusted right, that I can go through and swing. Yeah, I'll go through and I'll work with that. I'm going to work with that a little bit more so I have enough slack in cables if I go through and rotate. And yes, it does have S video as well. And it's got power out. I may even go through and connect up one of the not an IBM sound bars to the bottom of this. And to the reason I moved the little Think Center unit is that I can do video more remote to it. In other words, I can have the apologize for leaving up the internal webcam going. And it's always a work in progress. I'm still trying to get the other studio going at home. So getting some more viewers, and sure, we remember you, Hugh. But I'll go through and I'll have actually the unit and a comparable 4:3 aspect ratio screen up here on the bench, and that way I'll go actually for duplicating the displays. And I could even go through to right here, being at the bench, running the mouse control and things like that to be able to pull something up on that screen back there. And I even have a USB extender that even if I happen to connect up that USB back there through the extender, if I plug in like a thumb drive or something else, I'd have it recognized by the system being some distance away, effectively as the cable runs 20 to 25 feet, although in distance being 8 feet away, of course, as the cable has to run around the back of the bench. So I've got a little bit more of the cabling back behind to do. And so I'll have that. The display cable is coming into the display port cable. And it's a 25-foot extension, which the display port should handle fine. It's a single length. They wouldn't have made the cable if it didn't work as it was, or you wouldn't think they would have made the cable. And I tried DVI extenders. I had where it was a DVI connection that, of course, I would adapt to either HDMI or DisplayPort, and it'd go over unshielded twisted pair cabling, and that didn't work for the resolution. And I'll actually use that somewhere else. I'll use that actually at work. We have a projector that's got a DVI input, and for the resolution of the aspect ratio, that 4:3 ratio for that display, that should work fine. So it'll be an excellent thing in there. And then here, I don't really need an extender. I'm not going all that long of distance, just 25 feet that I can go with a regular DisplayPort cable. And so we'll see how that goes through and does things. I've got a little bit of my ADD going again here with alignments and things like that. Now, as you can see on the bench, and of course, I did the last video, I did my zip drives, and I was happy to say that both my and they were SCSI. Um, they're both SCSI zip drives, and that I had marked as bad. And I've got both of those going. Actually, I connected them up to the regular SCSI connection of this ThinkCenter, and I was able to get the drives to respond very well and work. And even this one that I still have connected is a Zip 250. And I think the system recognizes the drive as the disk that's in there. I need to see if I can pull out some 250 disks because under Vista, it just says it's a Zip 100 when it gets recognizing the disk. And that may be, as I did on the earlier video, the reason that it just reports it as a removable drive before it actually seeks to the disk. In other words, it doesn't know the capacity of that removable drive until you actually go through to use it. The zip drive itself, being that the recorded media is separate, is removable, the zip drive does not report what the size of the capacity of that drive is, even if it's a Zip 100 drive. And I can see from there, once I get the Zip 250 disk and see how that is reported. I have a couple of those, internal and external, in addition to this one, although this will be in this style and this connectivity for its SCSI is something that I want to go through and test a little bit further and run those and get all my zip media organized and get the drives and actually get them to the point where I have enough of the drives that I can have one up here full time and have a machine that's able to run it. And so in place that I can set up easily enough and to go from there. Now, as you can see, otherwise, I've got a lot of ThinkPad stuff and docs off to the side. I'm trying to pull those out and go through over those a little bit further to go through and test them and get everything paired up together, get the OS that's on those systems running. I showed, speaking of CentOS, or the operating system of the ThinkPads I've had on video, I did go through for the zip drive and found out Linux being a operating system where you have to mount the media for drives, it doesn't recognize a zip drive right off the bat, at least in the parallel port format and things like that. I've got a PCMCIA SCSI adapter that I can try with those zip drives for that aspect of the zip drives and ThinkPad sort of things, to go further in that regard. Now, and I fired up the Vista system here today. The actual diskette drives I have off to the side are the older style. This is the one thing I wanted to do with this one that I had out for the I had out the other day for the ThinkPads is this ThinkCenter does not have a diskette drive to it. So I was going to go through and set that up and get the diskette drive recognized. I don't know if I even have a diskette around though to, okay, so it's installing device driver. I just wanted to go through and make sure that I could go through for the ThinkCenter system here to get a diskette drive that would be recognized and going. Now for the ThinkPad docks, you know, I've got varying levels. So let's go through without the key level. And as you can see, I've done some preliminary testing that it works. A little bit of cleaning, although these are still can be a little bit dusty and. But this being the dock for a lot of systems, but really covering the like the T40s and T42 that I have, and it doesn't have the locking assembly on it, and so it's a relatively manual eject. Has the feature to go through and to if you have the extended battery that goes a little bit further back, has the ability to handle that if the case may be. I think this covers for different models that how it the top slides into position, and as I said, manual release, and then it's got the modem and Ethernet port, VGA, DVI, a single USB connection, your audio and power, and that's probably line out the blue. I'm trying to think what the color coding for that was, whether that's like a line in or a microphone. Yeah, it looks like a line in if we can see the embossed symbols there. And then keyboard and mouse, parallel port. We'll start the serial port, parallel port, and then there being the diskette drive port. We'll encounter that on the other docks as we look those over. I think I had a couple of those with the no key. Okay, so here's a key model of almost the same form factor size. Still have where I've tested it. Same thought there for the how the uh, how that reacts to whatever ThinkPad unit that you have in there and the battery capacity. Has a little bit more features, primarily the lock to lock the unit into the dock, and so same thing of the modem and Ethernet port, VGA, DVI, more USB ports, and a different style power connection. And I have one of those power supplies. I'll show that in a moment too. But all the other ports being the same on the bottom, and that diskette drive again connection. And I wish I had to show that picture, because okay, I think this is another no key model. Yeah, this is the same as the first dock I showed. And then the big boy, and I still have some the little instruction everything else. I had a little bit of initial trouble with this, and I'll probably eventually show this on video on what I did. But has the key. This even has, and I could go through. This even has a spot for a PCI adapter down below in this bay. And if I had and of course I could get out a coin too for the, like a dime maybe, for how IBM. And of course we still have the regular content that's pending. I've got the PS2 Model 30 planer way off of there in the back with that hard drive cable to get out that SSD drive that's for the Model 25 and Model 30, and test that a little bit more. I'm just waiting on a little bit of response from the designer for that, because he's got a lower cost unit that's coming in as well. So there's that PCI adapter, and of course the block out, so handles up to a certain size of PCI adapter in the unit. And also has where, and I've got to look over some of the spare stuff I have around. So it's got for the DVD or CD-RW drive that inserts in the bay there and latches in. I do have some of these spare. I think I've got like a different style than what the main connector. And this may even do a diskette drive level as well. I don't know for that adapter. And I'd even have to look up and see what this is as far as how they define this dock. But on the back, there's really nothing more to go through the side. So it's got a AC input even of its own, so you don't have to have a power brick. And then a fan to cool, PCMCIA slots, the modem and Ethernet, VGA, DVI, the 4 USB ports, line in and line out, and your PS2 connections for mouse and keyboard, serial parallel, and again that diskette drive connector with the icon on it. Now, as I say, I was having some trouble with this where it was plugged in and I wasn't getting it to release, because it has locked and unlocked icons there, and I wasn't getting it to release the laptop. And what I found out is this has actually a bar in it that I was going through and having to use on the release there. So just pop in that and slide it forward to have the release go, because it actually has. And what it does is that doesn't, when you do the release there, it doesn't release the laptop. It just enables the button to come up that it has to where you can go through and push it down, because it's got on the front there. And then when you think when the laptop's on there, how do you see the symbology? That's hidden away. But showing that you press the button and it shows an hourglass, like you have to wait some time for it to pop the button up. And it wasn't doing that on me. But then when the button comes up, then you push it down and that releases the laptop from that. And it has the same sort of thing with the adjustment on the front. I think that, yeah, that still comes forward for some of the models to go flush with the ThinkPad that's in there. Although with the T40 and T42, it's all the way to the back, and if you have an extended battery, again, for that. So at least with the power supplies I have, I hope I even brought up the cord for that one unit. But I've got power supplies for the smaller docks, and these also work on the ThinkPads themselves of that vintage. Here's the big boy power supply for that mid-sized dock with the 4 pins in. And I've got, okay, that's another power supply for these are the smaller ones. Yeah, I've got the cord. Oh, and this is the bigger, okay. This is for another Lenovo unit that I have. I need to take that back and then make sure I grab the cord for that big AC cord. I know I've got some of those, but these are, let's go over the ThinkPads first. And this is actually a T60, and it doesn't have the parallel port like the T40 and T42 do. And then there's some of the ports on it, PCM, MSIA slots. DVD drive. And of course, no diskette drive. It's for that USB style, like I have here on the ThinkCenter. And then this is an A20. The only blemish on this otherwise, and this actually has Windows 98 loaded on it. Quite a nice setup. But it's melted somehow for the lip of that, and it's just a superficial melt on it because it doesn't. Yeah, as I have it, I've got this little sheet and the identification. Wow, it's a little bit dirty for those hinge areas. And nice little display, but this will be a nice little Windows machine. It's got the diskette drives. It even has these ports on there that IBM had some little connectors. And I've got those that were designed to plug into ports, but the diskette drive, there's the hard drive carrier, and a CD drive, and ultimately be something like this. It's going to be in that big dock as well, but even has blockouts, I guess, for the for the. Okay, those are S video. I may even see sometimes if they actually have ports underneath that. Be interesting if that's whether that's blocked out or not. Parallel port, modem, Ethernet, serial VGA, USB, and a mouse connection. Probably not a multi-port where you could have one of those Y connectors with the keyboard and mouse. But that's the A20. And I do have some older ThinkPads as well along the, in fact, I've got a 570 as well that I had recently pulled out. In fact, let's show that one. Because I thought it was interesting for the little, all the Ultra Bay docks and everything else. I went through, and this one actually had it has the Ultra Bay. Let's go through full. Okay, so we have this little slide on the bottom. It's over in the full unlocked position. That's normally your operation to where it would lock everything. You go one step over for unlocking certain things, and that is the full unlocked position. And actually, this is not the bottom of the laptop as it is, because um, they call this an ultra base. There's the ultra base. And so they give little indicators too. You go through the steps. There's number one for both your battery compartment and your diskette drive. And then number two is going through and doing the movement side to side. And then of course there's bays on either side, diskette, CD, that for the CD side, there's your number one indicator. So going through for number one, it doesn't have a battery in here. And as it is anyway, for the battery that's on the unit, going through and being plugged in, it just blinks yellow. It never, the battery's in not a good condition. So 1, 2, that's a diskette. Now the diskette drive is able, we'll look at this plug later on, the style plug. Okay. So that could be an external diskette drive for this. Okay, I think I'm fully unlocked. Oh, just a little bit harder. And here is, and I would need something like that for that big, because that's the connector that's in there for that big dock. Either to move this drive over to that big dock. I'd likely get I may even have some spares for that. But, you know, that's designed to be swapped around, not designed to use necessarily as an external, although I don't know if IBM had any cabling that they did for that. But it's got, you know, of course, the connector to the laptop power, even has a MIDI port, single USB, line in, no, that'd be line out, and your Kensington lock. And so the laptop, and this is a 570. I don't have the paper in here. I need to go through and do it. This actually has Windows XP loaded, and I had to go through and it's got 64 megabyte of RAM, and the SIM socket is unpopulated or SODIMM, whatever they're considering it for the miniature memory connection. And I'll probably take this back actually to Windows 2000. I've got the SIM on order. I think it's under this compartment here, but it's completely empty. I guess this is it's actually keyed up so I can use regular Philips. And it's interesting, it's got the USB connection right there as well. Even has the kind of pillar for alignment of the cover, but that SIM socket being empty. And it takes up to a 128 megabyte PC66 SIM. And so I've got one of those on order. And, you know, looks like somebody removed the COA. This battery is, and look at, of course, pricing on batteries and things like that for something this far out of date are going to be, you know, that was even where the battery has the rubber foot on it to be part of the bottom of the case. But has the like a port replicator or the bay, which the Ultra Base does here in this position. And let's go through and latch that into the, and that just blocks out the power connection. You still have access to all the ports there otherwise. And go through, it's nice that it adds, because to crack into this with it running XP, I had to run the Hiren's boot disk. And this is actually the power on here that you have to, you know, depress and slide a little bit more of a latching power button. But, you know, with the diskette drive and the CD-ROM, this makes it, although makes it quite a bit thicker, but adds a lot more functionality to things. And even the Ultra Base here, let's go through and let's lock everything in place. But the Ultra Base has a 1 and 2 for the how it's able to lock into something else. And I had this, which is interesting for that it's only able to go into the one position there. Okay. And again, blocks out the power connection. It is a little bit angled to where how it has the ThinkPad in there. But I thought that really kind of interesting for the fact that all it does is it replicates the same ports that are on the laptop anyway. with some exceptions here. And it's got it goes through and blocks out the power connector, but has the diskette drive connection, serial port, parallel port, VGA, mouse and keyboard, whereas it's just a mouse on the ThinkPad here. So the thought is you could use this at a desktop station, and then has the mouse and keyboard that are replacing the modem connection that's up there on the laptop itself, and that's probably still functional on the laptop from the laptop. But the only thing I can think of with it replicating all of the effective ports that are on the laptop anyway is this is probably just a quick release functionality that you have this at your desk and just going through and bringing in your mobile laptop to go through and quickly connect it to the peripherals that you have at that location. And I guess you're not going through and using MIDI at your desktop with it blocking that MIDI port. Goes through and blocks one of the USB, the from the Ultrabase platform, and then blocks some of those other connectors from you having on your Ultrabase. And the interesting thing is the laptop itself is not able to go through this port replicator directly. So it's where you have this nice little stack of the laptop and Ultrabase, and then you go through and have it for your desktop area, and just adds a little bit of elevation in the back to the ThinkPad. Yeah, and those batteries are kind of thin. I probably missed part of the chat window here. So let me go through. I'll get back up on screen. Let me scroll through a little bit on the chat. Yeah, and I'm glad you have that speech to text adapter as well, because it's probably a lot easier than reading lips. So it's going through, and I didn't really mean to dive into the ThinkPad stuff, but that was just what. And actually, I was kind of spurred by a picture I saw yesterday, and of a topic. I've kind of reviewed the chat stuff that streamed along. We're doing good on time. Now, this is one of probably the oldest style external 1.44 megabyte drives for the ThinkPad models. This also, the packaging makes you wonder if that's something that slides into a dock arrangement there, or Ultrabase arrangement somehow, because you have that connector on back, and then you have this connector on the side. Later on, the implementations were to have with that connector, and this is a pure external unit, 1.44 diskette drive, and has the ability to, of course, connect into that dock connection, or certain ones of those. This is a more of the full size, just like you saw on these other drives. Okay. And no, this doesn't work for transferring diskettes from one to the other for cloning diskettes. But also they did this cable, and this is more of the dock style and the connector that's on the back of some of the ThinkPads, to where you could even go through from the earlier drives to connect that to the dock, or this later version, put down the same thing, of that going to one of these docks. And I'll have to go through and check these drives out and make sure that they're still functional, just like I did for the zip drives. But that's why I have the docks out. Now, the interesting story I was hearing is somebody had some System 34 diskettes, which were, of course, they're at an 8-inch size. And I'd always heard that the diskettes, 8-inch diskettes on the System 34, I'd always heard that they're 1.2 megabyte. That for that capacity on the PC, all they did is kind of shrunk that down to a 5.25 diskette. That was the high density for the PC AT and later on of the 5.25 drives. But for someone giving away the diskettes and whether they had the possibility of archiving these, and I knew of the Grease Weasel to go through and to archive diskettes like that if you have an 8-inch drive. But I got a comment and even a picture from somebody that had developed an interface of an 8-inch drive connected to the ThinkPad port for the diskette drive. And they had like ThinkPad 600, I think, but they had this cable, or a cable going to there from the side of the ThinkPad. It was probably this end at the ThinkPad itself, going to this 8-inch unenclosed assembly with circuitry that was able to read 8-inch diskettes. And even the person that had responded made the comment that even the ThinkPad diskette drive port was able to work with single-sided diskettes. And I thought that was really interesting. And of course, I wondered, with all the variety of connections for the diskette drives that the ThinkPads have, on if that controller for like the ThinkPad 600 is the same, if the same capabilities are possible with later ThinkPads as well, with those connectors, using the same diskette drive connector. But looking for a further response, and that was on Facebook. So I want to see a little bit more details on that rig, because I think that'd be kind of cool, going through and having an 8-inch diskette drive, the ability to connect into a ThinkPad to be able to archive those 8-inch diskettes. And yeah, it's true that the 8-inch formats were the yeah, I saw that. And also Adrian Black did a video on the try not to kick things here. Adrian Black did a video on the 8-inch drives as well, the different styles and how to interface to them and how to go through and diagnose some things. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe a potential. I mean, the compatible 8-inch drives are probably, there's probably a limited supply out there, and they're probably sought after. But there may be a chance to find something like that and work with it. Who knows if anybody's doing a modern implementation of an 8-inch drive. Um, Even some of the comments I saw was that the S100 systems, when Hugh talks about the first diskette drives being 8-inch, that's what the drives were on those S100s. And of course, somebody's already done the adaptation of the 1.44 megabyte to those S100 systems, much like the ThinkPad external diskette drives that I've been showing here. So that's probably an unintended abuse of that ThinkPad connector to be able to interface to something like an 8-inch drive, but it just shows how things can be abused out there, some of the technology that somebody found a way to do that. And I thought that that was really kind of interesting for all that. The um, I'll have to get into some of the diskette tools as well that were able to read the raw formats and see that structure to basically being able to decode the different formats that could be on those diskettes as well if I venture into that aspect. So there's probably some learning curve. And okay, yep. And at least that Intel 8272 floppy drive controller, I mean, that was used for a lot of the uh, designs out there. I can't remember if they used that on like the display writer, because remember on the display writer you had those 8-inch diskette drives that were an external unit, and then the display writer itself was based on the 8086 CPU and may have had like an 8272 controller in there. And of course, later on, that was the NEC version of the 8272 that we saw on PCs and things like that when they came out. So yeah, there's a lot of smarter people that know that stuff than me. It might be just cool being able to replicate some of their designs. So, but I think the live stream kicked off pretty well, ran pretty well for the new equipment I have set up here. I've just got to go through and put some more cables in and do some other stuff. Um, just as my cable work in progress. I'll have to see when those cables are delivered today. But I even have my my audio from the big display coming over. I'm trying to think what they call that plastic audio only fiber that comes in for the TOS link connection. But I have I'm going to go through and break out that to some audio back here, and probably that creature sound system that I've done to pass the speaker system to have that back here. And even when I'm not doing videos, I can go through and crank up the tunes and things like that. So um, yeah, there's a lot more plans for this, even this original studio, and still a work in progress of getting that other studio going. I apologize for people for being away. It's been really roughly a year without any videos, and my channel has just slightly increased um, to uh, I think it's currently up to about 1,570, 1,560 subscribers, and hopefully being a little bit more active, that will increase as well. But I want to provide one link in chat because it's a channel that was looking for more subscribers, and Okay. And so I told him I'd go through and for them, putting out their link to where they can gain subscribers. And they are gaining. They're gaining about 20 subscribers from where I saw it yesterday when they made the announcement. So that, and you're absolutely right, Tom, that regular life and what pays the bills comes first. I recognize that you've probably even been a little bit busy yourself. Um, so there's that channel for the VCF Southwest, that they're below 1,000 subscribers. They want to break the 1,000 subscriber barrier. They of course got the channel going after the VCF Southwest ended, and the VCF Southwest I went to this year in late June. That was after a 10-year hiatus from uh, not happening for 10 years. So the VCF Southwest was the first time in 10 years that they got that going again. And they're already saying the dates for next year that I plan on attending as well. So the if people can go through and look over the VCF Southwest channel and subscribe, that would be excellent. The As I made the comment, that was my uh, the best record of me being at VCF Southwest was that YouTube streamer panel. That the video is up there on the VCF Southwest. So go through and watch that. I didn't go through and have really other recording media that I brought along or anything like that for sorry, just going through, and normally I should mute things and everything else for my sniffles and everything else. But being the video record of me attending VCF Southwest. So I think it's a good channel to go through and subscribe to. They certainly had some very renowned people that showed up at that, with Curious Mark and David Lovett of Usagi Electric, and even had Rebecca Heineman, and uh, I'd even had to look at the pronunciation of her companion that was there as well. Uh, Janelle Jaquays. I thought the pronunciation of the first name would be harder, but Jaquays, um, for even very renowned gamers that designed a lot of games in the industry. I wish I'd have been able to attend all the presentations that they had, but thanks to YouTube, that content of those presentations being available. I really like the one that June from Nibbles and Bites was in as well. It's on the VCF Southwest YouTube channel, of her going through and, well, no, that was a separate video that she did for her channel, of using a PS2 Model 77 for going through and line drawings on the screen. It's a fabulous video. I really recommend going through and looking over that. I was the low on the totem pole for the YouTube streamers that were on that panel with my subscribers. Everybody had more subscribers than me, but that was fine. And I got to sit next to Curious Mark on that panel as we went through and had a nice, lively discussion. 2 hours of that video, and yeah, the other um, evidence of my attendance of VCF Southwest, I was in some other videographers that were, or content creators on YouTube that were going around, and I just happened to be caught in the background and things like that. I did see myself on the Usagi Electric for where I was at the booth and what I was doing, and so yeah, I'm captured in other places. I think even Retrotech Chris saw me in the hallway and things like that, and we did a little quick little spot and things like that. But I had a chance to go through and meet so many fabulous people. And I'm just saying, for their YouTube channel being, it's a fledgling, needs to grow in subscribers, that I recommend subscribing now. Certainly before next year, they'll have the channel, going back in effect by then. YouTube is more of a thing now that they came off that 10-year hiatus, to go through and subscribe to their channel. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more content that's going to come through, and that was my recommendation, that they should have had with all the high level YouTube creators that were there uh, in their presentations and showing their attendance and stuff like that. They should have given a hard link to the VCF Southwest YouTube channel that people could click on to gain subscribers as well. So, um, no, uh, the uh, the Taylor and Amy have more subscribers than I do. In fact, they're actually over 2,000, and they were the next level up of me, the next step up in YouTube subscribers for those people that were on the panel. They had a little bit more than 2,000. I was definitely the low part of the totem pole, and even went to VCF Southwest with the idea that I would give the news that I was really just kind of getting out of YouTube, that I was not really um, planning to go through and have the channel very active. It was just that work was encompassing so much time that I was almost prepared to give bad news, and um, but I decided to give it another go with all the input I saw, and I knew the people. And in fact, I met, in addition to Curious Mark and Dave Lovett, I met Macintosh Librarian there. I know Grant Grissom of C64 Woody. I had known him before and have him friended on Facebook, and I saw him again. I'd seen him previously at Computer Reset when I actually met Clint from LGR. I had met Dave Murray, 8-bit guy, from when I was at Computer Reset. He was also at VCF Southwest, of course, and went on to some of the other VCF festivals in other places. Action Retro was there. Um, Scene or Sean, I'll have to look through. Bill Hurd even had a difficulty going through and pronouncing his last name on that streamer panel. I didn't meet him in person, Action Retro, to definitely go through and shake hands and everything else, but there's a little bit of interaction otherwise of him being on the panel and being around and things like that. Of course, Retrotech Chris was there, a big reason for the VCF Southwest kicking off again, starting up, being a platinum sponsor. I had, and I met Jim Leonard in person, Trickster, or Old School. I'm trying to even think if he has like X86 or whatever, Old School PC, or what his channel is, but he did that 8088 corruption video stuff. Someone that really knows his video abilities, and just met so many YouTubers and so many fascinating people that are really just icons in the industry. It was really amazing. I wish I could have gone to um, VCF West as well and things like that. There's so VCF West just concluded. I think I'm trying to think if it's Midwest or something that's up in September. There's I think the final one of the season, but I'm already preparing to go back to VCF Southwest next year, and who knows whether I'll get into some of the other locations. Probably be good just to go back to VCF Southwest for a second time before maybe in the next years following of trying to get back more on the circuit and things like that, just seeing where that goes. So yeah, it's really was interesting for the Dallas area being so the technology background to Dallas um, is there of it kicking off again, but um, these VCF the even if the without the Vintage Computer Federation sponsorship, uh, these vintage computer stuff is happening in other places as well. These meets and swap meets and all sorts of stuff of the things that happen. But yeah, I don't know. We hope that that stuff will catch on. It'll definitely drive up the eBay prices a little bit more as more people get into vintage computing mainly. But I'm just reminded and seeing posts and things like that of how much of a forgotten um, aspect that that can be with even people that are still in IT. I saw a post on Facebook, mainly throwing humor at the cassette port on the original PC, and it was remarkable the amount of people that calling that an RS-232 port or something like that for a mouse, of thinking that since that other DIN connector was for the keyboard, um, that was some sort of full-size DIN connector for a mouse or something like that, and just being so mistaken, and even going through misidentifying the connector that was for the diskette drives, the external diskette drives in this case, because it was the PC, and that connector being identified as a DB37. I even had, and I went through and explained, well, that's the external diskette drive connector. And I said, actually, it's a DC37. And even had somebody come back with trying to be snarky to me to say that, well, it's actually the DB37 has 3 rows of pins. And they showed ultimately a 52 pin connector that was actually the DB52. I thought interesting for that they tried to upstage me, and they even got the identification of the connector wrong again. They showed the wrong connector for what they were trying to do. But I was going through and pointing out to them the the Wikipedia page for the deep subminiature as my point of reference. And it's funny, the for all the Wikipedia is a good reference in that particular case. Um, and it even identifies at the top of that page DC37 redirects here for the Trade Union of New York in New York. See District Council 37. But yeah, the knowledge is fading of those. In fact, people were asking if that DC37 for the diskette drive was a SCSI port, and not in that instance. No, um, the DC37 was used for external SCSI, but really a lesser occurrence, certainly, and it got overridden by a lot of the connectors that supplanted that, that were a little bit more standardized. But it's just funny how that knowledge is fading a little bit as it is. I'm even forgetting a little bit of it. But I brought up the story that supposedly with the PC cassette port, and I don't know if it was Louis Egerbrecht or not. That was certainly he was an IBM engineer at that time. That um, and the story was the other side, the Microsoft side was Bill Gates, and Bill Gates, as part of Microsoft, did not want to support the cassette port because they viewed that technology was going away, and certainly it did with the XT version. The cassette port went the way of the dinosaurs. It was only used on the PC, but Louis Egerbrecht having to react to Bill Gates to say, well, damn it, Bill, I'm putting 35 cents of hardware on the motherboard, so give me 35 cents of software to support it. And even to where that so-called support is a little bit in the BIOS and the ROM, ROM basic being called cassette basic in that PC implementation. So, but it looks like we've been kicking along for a little bit more than an hour, which is just perfectly fine. That enough to try out the streaming routine for the live streaming side. I've got to try out the recording mechanism, and I even have DaVinci Resolve loaded on the system to perhaps go through and look a little bit more at editing and things like that for my videos, to maybe that production quality should be addressed on certain videos, to go through with more abilities, um, with greater powers comes more responsibility, to quote that. But I I'll just have to see what editing, maybe on a better system I can edit faster and it will be less of an impact to me to churning out videos and things like that. So good live stream. I thank people for all the viewers, and it looks like even for the as I went through and streamed with this system, I got a better. It seemed like it held the connection better. I encountered less YouTube warnings and things like that as well. So it sounds like that was the right thing to do as I go through and adjust the studio, get some stuff. I'll get that ClearClick original unit fixed, but and I'll grab it off the spot that I have it. It's interesting that the newer one, in fact, going through, and we can actually close a little bit of the video with this. I thought it was even pretty funny that the box stayed the same. As I said, for this older unit, I had it opened up and had, in fact, let's do this. I'm trying to go through and show it on my internal webcam, and I can probably do it better on my camera. So here's the front of the unit. And as I say, for the USB storage of the hard drive, or in a dock, uh, or just even a thumb drive, you don't even have to have a PC to record with this. I wonder if even this case is 3D printed by some of the way that appears, some of the structure. And then certainly it's very good layer lines, of whether they go through and I wonder if that's sanded or something else to come up with that case. But the connectors on the back, and as I say, on the new unit, they changed them around. But you can see as I went through and taped and stuff like that, it really went through and marred up the identifications and things like that. But this USB-C, it's going to be USB micro, is broke loose of the circuit board. The circuit board feels this entire thing, and then on some of the chips they actually have heat sinks on them, and I thought it funny because there's no venting otherwise on this, and the vents are on the bottom, um, as it is, and those aren't indentations. Those are those angled, not the straight on venting as you go through, and but with the circuit board in there filling that entire space inside of the enclosure, there's no way for those vents to actually work as intended. The heat sinks on those chips inside to actually have any functionality. They would have been better to put the venting on top of some sort. And I thought about going through and dremeling into this case to go through and fasten down the connectors um, that are coming into the back. But I'll go through and I'll repair that. I'll do a better repair job of that USB micro connector, and as I say, USB to PC. And it's funny that the ClearClick goes through and identifies this as a USB 3.0 device when actually it's USB 2 because of that micro connector. That micro connector doesn't have an extension on it to make it into a 3.0 USB or 3.1, whatever the case may be. But I'll get this unit repaired. I'll have it, I'll set up and use it. Who knows if this will go back in place for this studio if I get the other studio going. Definitely I'll find out if I can get the circuit board is likely changed of how since the ports are changed around with the newer version, even though the case is reused in this instance, but I want to see if I can get the later firmware on this unit because that is quite a bit more features that is on that unit, and even for the remote, again, like I say, with the new remote, it has to where that is just labeled as record for the new remote, and on the old remote, it is that is the on off button there. You can tell definitely the older and the newer devices in the space because the older ones have so much dust on them. It just dust gets coated on things. That's the only difference in the remote. It's just this kind of weird that I checked, and with this firmware on the ClearClick, there's no way of going through and using this remote to power down that unit as I was so used to. But it's just one of those things that happens as technology marches on. And I'll go through and get this repaired and get some of the other cabling here. I'll get this display in the back going, and with the cabling I go in so I can go through and sit at the bench and even have stuff come up on that screen from a distance, as it were. But that's just some of the things I've planned. Yeah, not the best thermal design at all for how they put that in place. I was really surprised. Um, I'll put venting in the top of the old unit as I repair it and get it going and get it back into functioning ability because they're nice units otherwise for the ability of putting my camcorder input through HDMI and also being able to switch over. I should have done for this one. I should have, still connected the PC in there as well, that I could go through with that remote and rapidly switch between the video sources. But we'll see that in more videos as they come along later from me. So thanks for everybody for tuning in, and we can probably resume this scheduling for the Saturday mornings for me, 10 in the morning. Although that's and I do that time frame for the people that are in earlier time zones, even to almost the aspect of halfway around the world, as it were, um, to be able to tune in. I think it's a good spot otherwise. But I look forward to kind of resuming on that schedule and getting through to where I'm churning out a little bit more videos of this odd one-off content maybe as I go through and do things too. We'll get analyzing that PS2 uh, XT to SD SSD solution for the Model 25 and Model 30, looking in that, hopefully even seeing a unit that gets down lower in price. And I think there's even a solution for solid state replacement of the DBA ESDI that's coming through as well, using that Teensy module as well, to see where that goes. And I think that'll really help a lot of the DBA ESDI PS2 models. So that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sure it'll be a little bit more time before I end the click the buttons, but this new OBS seems like it integrates a little bit better with YouTube Studio as well. And there's buttons in OBS to end the broadcast and stop streaming. You don't have to step over to the YouTube Studio to stop the stream like it was with the older OBS. And I'm going to see how that functionality works. Thank you, everybody. See you later.